Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. It's being broadcast as well, so they can pick it up on YouTube as well, and through other means of seeing it. So I'd like to welcome everybody here to our. I've been dubbing it the Peterborough Public Budget Home Show, as opposed to the Road Show, because we're encouraging everybody to stay home in these difficult times. But I'd like to thank everybody for their participation in our third set of public budget consultations. And every year, this is where the rubber hits the road. I always like to say this is start of the process. We've had, I think, 8 or 10 meetings with staff at this point, and we're still getting input from the budget and what the people want to see forward. So I do want to stress that this is the public's opportunity to kind of get their thoughts out to us. So without further ado, before I pass it on to my co-chair, I'd like to thank Councillor Zippel, Councillor Vasiliadis, and Councillor Clark for joining us here this evening. And all the finance staff is here as well, so I did want to thank them. Councillor Rial, Keith, did you want to jump in and say there's a few words before you go?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dean. Certainly, we hope that we get a good turnout tonight. These are time for the public to weigh in, ask questions, give us some suggestions. Certainly, it's a process. I know that with Dean alluded to the fact that COVID-19 has made us go this way, but we're hoping for a good turnout tonight. Certainly, this is our second one. We have one more planned, and certainly we hope that we can get a good turnout and get some good suggestions and some dialogue going. So again, I think Dean alluded to the fact we have some of our councillors here, Councillor Zippel, Councillor Vasiliadis, and Councillor Clark. So we want to thank them for joining us too tonight, and our staff. So Richard Freeman and Yvette Poplinsky. And our moderator, Brendan.
Brendan, the whiz kid Wedley, we call him. But I see we're still admitting people here, Brendan. There we go. So before I turn it over to the moderator, I just wanted to reiterate that I did forget to say, please fill out the public budget survey. It's our main way for you to actually record what you want in the next budget. So we are listening, and we all take notes here, and I've had a number of questions emailed to me, and I'll be reading them out at the end of the meeting as well. But the first part of the meeting is for the general public. Brendan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Pappas and Councillor Rial. I'm with the city's communications team, and I'm here along with Sarah and Sharon. And Sharon will be monitoring the chat feature for any comments that come through there. I'll be serving as the moderator and inviting participants to share comments after the brief presentation from Commissioner of Corporate Services, Richard Freeman, on behalf of the city's finance team. Hopefully the technology works as we all expect. We are recording the meeting, so we can post it later for viewing at people's convenience. Since today is about hearing from the community on community priorities to help set the guidelines for the creation of the draft 2022 budget, we're going to ask that you keep your comments to what you think should be priorities for the city budget. If you have questions on the budget or other city topics, please call us at the city at 705-742-7777, or you can send an email to cityptbo@peterborough.ca for assistance. The focus of this meeting is for the panel of council members and staff to hear from you, to hear from the community on budget priorities. If you're attending online through Teams and you'd like to share an idea, please use the raise hand feature that you should see in the toolbar along I believe it's on the top of your screen. And we'll call on people to speak, or if you'd like to share an idea but would prefer not to speak, you can type it into the chat feature. We'll be monitoring that chat feature. If you're attending by phone, we've asked that phone-in participants pre-register to speak, since this platform doesn't allow for phone-in participants to raise their hands. And we do have a few who have registered ahead of the meeting, so we're looking forward to hearing those comments. We'll keep track of people who have indicated that they'd like to speak, and we'll let you know when you can unmute to share your ideas or comments on community priorities. When you unmute, please remember to introduce yourself before sharing your idea. Please stay muted until you're invited to unmute. And we ask that all participants be kind and be respectful of the ideas and opinions of others. And with that, we'll start the brief presentation on the budget process. Over to you, Richard. Thanks.
Thank you, Brendan. I'm just going to take a moment and share my screen, and I'll just confirm with everyone that that you can see my presentation, and that you can see everyone can see it. Thank you. And I just would like to mention, along with Yvette Poplinski, our Manager of Finance, I have also with us this evening Mr. Bill McDougall, and Bill is our budget analyst and does a lot of behind the scenes work in terms of putting our budget documents together. So thank you to both of those folks for joining us this evening. The city's 2022 budget process is beginning with these roadshow meetings and the public consultation survey. There are numerous opportunities for public participation in the budget throughout the entire process. And after we hear from the public throughout the spring and summer, staff will develop the draft 2022 budget, taking into consideration community priorities, legislative program requirements, demands for services and infrastructure, and balancing those wants and needs with the available funding and affordability to taxpayers. In the fall, staff will complete the draft budget. Finance Committee will review and approve the budget guideline in June and July, and there will be opportunities for public input at the June 23rd meeting. Finance Committee budget deliberations will be held in November, and with budget approval expected for December. This next slide shows the sources of revenue included in the 2021 budget. And as you can see on the left, property taxes account for a significant portion of the revenues. In fact, in 2021, a full 48%. Other sources of revenue include grants from the provincial and federal governments, such as federal and provincial gas tax, casino revenues, building permit fees, interest income, development charges, rental fees for the use of city facilities, and so on. This next pie chart shows how the 2021 operating budget was allocated between city departments and transfers to other organizations. Much of the city's spending is for legislative requirements and provincial program delivery and essential services. Property taxes and other revenues in the budget are used to fund operating costs, which include heat and electricity, maintenance costs for city facilities, wages for staff that deliver those services and programs like recreation, social services, garbage collection, plowing roads and sidewalks, transit drivers, police, fire, and so on. There's a number of departments at City Hall, and if we look at the top of the pie chart in about the 1 o'clock position, we have the council and office of the mayor, and then the chief administrative officer, which includes communications and fire services and emergency management. We have corporate and legislative services, which includes the clerk's office, human resources, legal, financial services, the tax office, facilities management, facilities planning. Then we have infrastructure and planning services, which includes engineering and construction, public works, waste management, the airport, transit, planning, and building inspection services. And then near the bottom of the chart, in about the 5 o'clock position, right around to the 9 o'clock, we have the Community Services Department, which includes social services, arenas, recreation, arts, the art gallery, the museum, the library, and the marina. The operating budget also includes transfers to external organizations for services provided to city residents, including Peterborough Police Services, the Health Unit, Peterborough Public Health, and Peterborough Economic Development, Fairhaven, and to the Peterborough County for the paramedic services. It also includes the Humane Society and the Downtown Business Improvement Area. One of the things not shown on this pie chart is the impact that COVID has had on the city's budget. In fact, in this past year, in 2020, we estimated the impact of COVID on the municipal budget at a full $21 million. And of course, in 2021, we're already at several more $1 million. And the good news from a budget perspective, if there is good news, Council was able to balance the books without asking the taxpayer for any additional help. Of course, light is at the end of the tunnel with the vaccinations happening in our community. The and the city has redeployed staff to help with the vaccine clinics and the scheduling of appointments. This pie chart shows how the 2021 capital budget was allocated between city departments. And as you can see, the majority of it goes to the infrastructure and planning services. And the funds are spent on items like roads and bridge construction, storm and sanitary sewer networks, the purchase of major pieces of equipment, and so on. At the end of the process, staff produce budget documents that are available online and in paper copy at City Hall. And I just want to take a moment and highlight one of those documents. It's called the Budget in Brief. It's a Coles Notes version of the budget. It's a fairly short document, an easy read, written in plain, everyday language, and really helpful if you want just the highlights. This document will be available for pickup at City Hall upon request and online once it's produced. And of course, generally speaking, the budget documents and the budget itself will be promoted through local media channels. I just want to take a moment and share with you the type of information that you can find on the city's website. When you're on the city's website, if you click on City Hall and follow the links to the budget page, there's a number of internal links that provide a wealth of information. And when the draft 2022 budget document is available in November, a lot of this information will be updated. On those web pages, you can find, of course, the draft budget documents themselves and other financial reports. Pages will provide information about the results of the public consultation and the roadshow meetings, the public survey. We'll talk about where your tax dollars are going, and where the city gets its money. And of course, we'll also post the budget in brief document that we mentioned a few moments ago. If you're looking to dive a bit deeper into the budget document, there's a chart that's very helpful in terms of where your tax dollars go, and you can find a very detailed schedule actually that breaks down all the municipal services and how much a typical taxpayer is paying for those services. The budget consultation link will provide details of all the community engagement opportunities, and links to those results of these roadshow meetings and the public survey will be produced in a What We Heard report and submitted to council. We'll also include links in the budget page in the online community engagement space called Connect Peterborough. And lastly, one of the most recent additions to our webpage that I just want to draw to everyone's attention this evening is a new interactive tool on the budget webpage called the Capital Budget Map Viewer, which shows all the city capital projects included in the draft budget overlaid on a map of the city. Projects can be shown for each of these city departments or all of them. Begin by simply selecting a department, and you can see on the screen here I've highlighted the Infrastructure and Planning Services department. And then when you click down one additional level, and once the department is selected, the dark blue areas on the map indicate capital projects proposed in the draft budget for that department. When a single project is highlighted, and you can see the project that I've highlighted here this evening, is the Lansdowne Street rehabilitation from Park Street to the Otonabee River. You can click on that on the pop-up, and you can actually go directly to the capital budget document, and you can read the details about that particular project. And with that, Brendan, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll invite everyone this evening. Don't forget to complete the budget survey. Thank you.
Thanks for that reminder, Richard, on the budget survey at connectptbo.ca/2022 budget. And with the brief presentation, we move on to the section of the meeting that's for hearing from the participants. You can indicate if you'd like to share a comment by using the raise hand feature. And we also have some registered participants from phone in who have pre-registered to provide comments. So I think we'll turn to one of those first. And the first registered participant is Bev Quinlan. And I'll invite you to unmute with I believe it's *6.
My name is Bev Quinlan. I would like to speak tonight on the budget implications to the city if the proposed renovations to the Peterborough Sports and Wellness Center move forward as initially planned. Having information allows for informed decision-making. In an attempt to do this, I solicited relevant mechanical documents from various city staff pertaining to this project without success. Despite the lack of supporting documentation, most of the people who actually use the wellness center understand the need to do necessary repairs to the HVAC system and pool pipes. They simply do not understand or support the need to renovate the change rooms, unbundle this project. According to city staff, on this project, the cost is 60% change rooms, 40% HVAC and pipes. This translates to $1,950,000 being spent on renovations yet to be shown as necessary. As for losing or having the provincial grant for this project pared down, it's been my professional experience there will be other similar initiatives offered in the future. The grant opportunity should not be a determining factor in deciding the fate of this project, given the close to 66% portion required from the city coffers. Based on diminishing revenues due to COVID and rising expenses elsewhere, save the close to $2 million and reprioritized. I listened intently to concerned citizens regarding the state of the roads during the last council meeting. Foregoing the change rooms in favor of fixing close to 20 roads would be a wise and financially prudent decision. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you very much. I think Brendan's about to unmute himself here. Just give us a sec.
I was. Thank you for that. Thank you for that comment, Mr. Quinlan. And with that, we'll ask you to mute yourself.
Okay, how do you do that? *6?
It is. Thanks again. The next participant is Alice Levin, who's raised the hand. Thank you.
Hello, I think I'm unmuted. Is that right? Somebody nod? Okay, thank you.
I can hear you.
Great, okay. So I want to talk about housing and building construction by the city. The climate crisis is only getting worse, with Canada still far away from meeting its carbon emissions target of cutting by half by 2020. That's less than 9 years away now. By 2030, pardon me. This reduction is required if the world is to keep global heating below the 1.5 degrees, where climate effects become much more dangerous. Canada, and that means you and I, are the worst person emitters in the entire G7 developed nations, and we're among the top emitters in the entire world. In Peterborough, 40% of our emissions come from buildings, mostly from heating them, so we have to address that issue. The city has direct control over their own buildings and can guarantee results there. So all new city construction, including affordable units, must be as energy efficient as possible. Modern construction techniques, such as the Passive House Standard, can reduce heating demand by 90% at an extra construction cost of only about 10%. That reduces heating costs enough to give a payback of about 10 years and even less as the cost of carbon ramps up in Canada to $170 a ton by 2030. The best news is that for your affordable housing dwellings, and I compliment Council on its action on affordable housing. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities has just announced in a program called Sustainable Affordable Housing that it will provide a 10% grant that covers the extra cost for low energy construction. It is pointless to continue to construct new buildings that will bleed CO2 to the atmosphere for the next 70 years of their existence. The only sensible approach is to build low energy buildings, starting with your next project, and get FCM to cover the extra cost for affordable buildings. We have to start now if we're going to meet our 2030 targets for a livable environment. We can't kick the can any further down the road. There is no more road. Thank you.
Thank you for participating, Mr. Slavin.
Al, can I get you to lower your hand? Thanks. You have to click on it.
Thank you. And just a reminder for participants who are participating through online through their computer or their phone, you can use the raise hand feature if you'd like to indicate you'd like to share a comment today. For phone and participants, we did ask that you pre-register to provide a comment. The next participant is Lindsay Shaddy, and I'll invite you to unmute. You can press *6 to unmute.
Good evening, councillors and staff. My name is Lindsay Shaddy. First of all, thank you for having these consultations. You know, if the city had had genuine consultations over the proposed renovations to the Peterborough Sport and Wellness Centre, perhaps I would not have had to take up some of your time tonight. I'm calling to urge the city not to go through with the project as proposed. Most of it is unnecessary, and we should especially not be adding to our deficit over this. The change rooms were renovated only 6 years ago, and they certainly do not need replacing. The architect and some city staff members have created what I think is the erroneous impression that the current change rooms have to be replaced by one mixed gender change room to comply with provincial regulations. That is not the case. In addition to a men's and a women's, we already have a universal change room that has accessible facilities and private cubicles. It is open to anyone who wants to use it. So everyone is welcome at the center because everyone has a choice. We understand that the HVAC system and pipes need replacing. So we ask City Council to unbundle the project and do only what is necessary. If the showers need regrouting, by all means, get a contractor in to fix the grouting, but do not throw out the entire change room. It would be such a waste of money, particularly at a time when so many people in this city are hurting because they've lost their jobs or their businesses. We hope that you will do the right thing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Shaddy. I don't see other hands raised at this time. Councillor Pappas, I know you have some topics. Would you like to move to that? And we'll see if we have any more comments that come through.
Sure. I had a number of emails, but I don't know if I'm just getting a glass of water here. Thank you. Good old Peterborough tap water. It's good for you. Before I go to the emails, I just want to give any guests a chance to kind of chime in. They can still chime in at the end of the meeting if they'd like to. So I had some general ones here. I have a number of them email me. People are emailing in some of their concerns. So the first one I'll read it. It actually talks about the debt. So please explain why the city issues debt almost every year, and how can we afford to keep borrowing money and adding to our debt? So I guess I'll turn that over to Mr. Freeman, who's our debt expert.
Thank you, Councillor Pappas. Properly managed debt is a very useful tool to help fund the city's capital program. And when you think about it, it's much like, using a mortgage to buy a house or a car loan to buy a car. We can borrow money now to fund major capital programs and pay that debt over time. So it's a way to spread out the cost, which is very important when preparing a capital budget. Certainly, the current interest rates are very favorable. Meaning we can get more bang, I guess, for our debt servicing dollar, if you want to put it in those terms. And along with myself, I know there's a number of folks that, and actually external parties that monitor, the city's ability to take on debt, and that includes Standard & Poor's, our credit rating agency. It includes our auditors, and also includes the province through Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Certainly, the province sets a limit on how much the city's debt can be, And in fact, the city itself has a policy that's actually more stringent than the provincial policy. So all in all, I think that debt is a very useful tool, and it ensures that in these these favorable borrowing conditions, we can continue to move forward with key infrastructure projects that help keep our infrastructure in good state of repair, and maintain a safe and manageable level of debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. For Fraser, thank you for joining us here this evening. Your camera is on, so just so you know, it's fine if you want to leave it on, but it is being recorded and it's going to be broadcast. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So I think we have a speaker next is Mr. Attridge. Ian?
Thanks very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this discussion, and for staff and council members providing their time and engaging the public on this. I guess I have a couple of questions. The first one is, what is the status of the updates of the city's development charges bylaw, particularly given that there's been changes in provincial legislation? The development charges bylaw, of course, raises significant amounts of money for the city and covers some things and sometimes not fully other things. And I'd appreciate an update on that. And perhaps my second question is perhaps more for council members, is the budget guideline exercise seems to be focused on setting a number for the increase in the budget. And as we saw last year, council was not able to come to consensus on what that number should be, and yet the process continued. I'd like to know how that process that setting the budget guideline can focus on council's priorities and not just the financial priority of keeping property taxes down. How can council get a grip on what are the main priorities and directions for the city to guide its financial decisions and guide staff in putting together the budget? Thank you.
So I don't know if Mr. Freeman wants to answer the first question about the development charge bylaw. Well, sure. I formulated an answer for the second one.
Okay. No, so thank you very much, Mr. Attridge, for your question. And as you will probably recall, I think it was in 2020, the city last updated, maybe late in 2019, actually, the city updated its current development charge bylaws. And at that particular time, the province was proposing further amendments to the development charge regime and introducing what's called a community benefits charge. And of course, at that point in time, they had introduced some draft regulations, I believe, and not finalized the date of when those regulations would come into effect. So I think that now they have provided that date, and I might just look to Ms. Poplinski here to help me out, but I believe it's coming up it's within a 2-year window. We would have to update our development charge bylaw and introduce the community benefits component. So hopefully I've got that right, and maybe I'll ask Ms. Poplinski if she is aware of if I'm incorrect there to certainly correct me. Yvette, do you recall the window of time for the community benefits charge?
Yes, you're correct. There's a 2-year transition period for municipalities. So it would be in the fall of 2022, I believe, is the deadline to have those changes made.
Okay. So certainly in anticipation of that event, we will be engaging a consultant and working through the process and doing the consultations to introduce the community benefits charge. Thank you.
Thank you. And around priorities for council?
Thanks, Ian. We're always trying to adapt our public budget, our process. As the city grows and as the community grows, we've gone from being kind of a small town to a full-on mid-sized city. We're the 17th biggest city in Ontario with a almost $300 million budget. So, and just like with this process here, the public budget consultation wasn't part of the earlier processes. So it's always evolving. So I hear what you're saying. I know in past years, maybe my first or second year on council, we had a process where council had that dot democracy thing where they would write their priorities and councillors would vote, and then we'd go to as a process on what that number is. But I think it's always evolving, and we're always open to better ideas. This is the public's budget, and if there's a better way to come to a guideline, I think we're kind of all ears. And last year, as you pointed out, we actually didn't set a guideline, and staff and KMG went and looked at our services, and then council had the debate at budget time. So I think there's more than kind of one way to skin a cat here. So we're always open to new ideas, and the process is always going to evolve and move forward. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we are open to new ideas, Ian, I think.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian. And I'll just ask you to put down your hand if you could. And before we move on to the next speaker, just anyone who would like to share a comment with the panel is invited to raise the hand if they're joined by their computer or phone. And we did ask that phone participants pre-register to share a comment as they're not able to raise the hand. Our next speaker is Fraser Bleasdale. If you can unmute, and welcome to the meeting.
May I use the phone? I guess not.
Yep, we could hear you there.
Okay. So I can use the phone then. You can hear me?
We can hear you. Yep, thank you.
Okay. I've got a few comments, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak, to be consulted, which the city generally is very good at doing. Unfortunately, it hasn't done that for the Wellness Center project, notably. But in any case, I would like to speak against the proposed pre-commitment of $1.925 million of the 2022 budget to pay for what we consider the unnecessary $3.25 million renovation of the Peterborough Sports and Wellness Center. I heard the comments earlier by Mr. Freeman, who said that he'd been able to balance the budgets. I assume that's despite the projected $12.45 million as of the end of March, and I assume that's by drawing down reserves. But in any case, it is the case that the pandemic continues to have significant financial implications across the corporation. So I think this kind of expenditure is unwise, given the state of the finances in the city. According to the proposal, the city will fund a total of $2.2 million towards the $3.25 estimated total project cost, plus, of course, any cost overruns, which seem to happen for many of our city projects. Of the $2.2 million that the city will be obliged to pay, it's proposed that $100,000 be transferred from the capital reserve of the Peterborough Sports and Wellness Center, which of course will leave reserves dangerously low for any exigencies that may arise. So I noticed Schedule 2 of his report on March 8th showed that the Recreation Department leads all other departments in overspending its budget as of December 31st, anyway, 2020. It's already at $176 let's call it 178% of its budget as of December 31st. So do we really need to spend more for the department for a change room project that is so obviously ill-conceived right from the get-go? Instead, it makes sense to me and to a lot of us to unbundle the HVAC renovation repairs from the rest of the proposed project, do what's necessary, and leave the rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bleasdale.
Okay, and I'll lower my hand.
Great, thank you so much. I don't see any other hands at this point.
Can I get you to
Councillor
mute your camera as well, for Fraser, so we can?
Pardon me?
Can I get you to mute your camera as well as your audio?
Am I that ugly?
No. No, it's not what I was implying. There we go. Thank you. Do we have any other speakers, Brendan?
I don't see any at this time.
You turn it back on.
You want to go back to the email list?
Yeah, I'll go back to the email list.
Thank you.
That's good. I have another one here about COVID, and is the city paying any of the vaccination costs for the clinics in response to the COVID pandemic? And I know that you touched on it a bit, Mr. Freeman, but if you want to answer that again.
Thank you, Chair Pappas. The city is providing certainly support to Peterborough Public Health. We're providing in-kind support for staff time to work on the vaccine clinics, and helping to book the immunization appointments. The city does provide funding support to Peterborough Public Health, and those costs are shared with the county and First Nations as well. So yes, the city is incurring some costs, albeit most of it are in kind and in the form of wages and staff time, as well as some IT support. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next one I had is about the casino. How is the city impacted by the casino being closed during the pandemic, and how much have we lost in those revenues? I guess it's a two-parter.
Yeah, okay. So, Chair Pappas, as we all know, the casino has been, significantly impacted, the operations of it during our pandemic. And, in a normal year, and albeit, the city of Peterborough doesn't have a lot of experience hosting a casino, but I would suggest to you this evening that under normal circumstances, if it was business as usual, the city would probably receive about $3.4 million a year in terms of, gaming, a share of the gaming revenues. Those funds are held in reserve when received and then spent on capital projects. We don't actually use the funds for the normal operations of the city, and we direct the funds to the capital program. First of all, there's a long list of needs in the capital program, and the funds lend themselves to capital because, when we direct them to project-oriented spend, if you will, once the project is complete, then we can save up monies and go on to another project. And that ensures that we're not reliant upon those funds for the normal operations of the city. Certainly with the casino being closed, the revenues much lower than otherwise would be anticipated, we've had to scale back the funding that is provided to the capital budget. In fact, in 2021, in this current year, there's no funds actually for the casino in the 2021 budget. We actually were, trying to balance the commitments against the reserve, and we need to replenish the reserve before we can draw more monies out of it. So it is being impacted. Certainly the city's capital budget is being impacted, but hopefully when we return to normal. And you know, as the casino opens back up, we'll be able to funnel some new monies back into the capital program. Thank you.
You're on mute, Councillor Pattis.
Wow. My wife would love to have that mute button when I talk. I have some more that I'm going to pass on to some of the councillors here. I'll start with Councillor Vasiliadis. You sit on a number of portfolios as a councillor, Don, but your main one is the public works. And this person is asking, with the grass growing and the parks starting to be open and lockdown happening, can you take a few minutes to kind of talk about the portfolio and how we're getting the outdoor spaces ready for people? It's really about the park cleanup and how we're getting them kind of ready for the public, especially poignant after today's announcement, I think, with the new lockdown.
Well, yeah, that's on. I mean, that's always ongoing, but this is spring cleanup time, right, for public works. So this time is coincides with seasonal staff arriving in the second week of April, and that goes until June, basically, with what you would consider spring cleanup. And so, again, you have to watch the fields. They're starting to dry right now, so now we can actually do some work on them. But that's ongoing again until June. But just on a side note, with other kind of cleanup, the green waste has commenced today, yesterday, and that will be regular pickup until November 26th. So that's always exciting too. But you know, I think with public works, I do like to talk about how we maintain our roadways, because we seem to we're repaving a lot more of our roadways recently too, right? So. But as a media release went out yesterday about our street sweeping program and how that helps protect our environment, removes pollutants from the road surfaces, you know, and reduces urban runoff that goes to the storm water system. Also, too, a fun fact here that our city street sweepers clean all of our 958 lane kilometers roadways during the months of March to May. So didn't know, you know, I don't know if everyone knew that we had that amount of roadways, but we are cleaning them all. But again, it's an ongoing process, I think, maintaining the city, and parks are one part of it. And I know that they'll be used a lot during this time. And even if anybody was out today, you certainly did see people out you know, walking, playing, and using them. But again, this will be an ongoing process right past spring into summer with public works.
Thank you. Did you say 900 kilometers of street?
958 lane kilometers of roadway. So
that's a lot, actually.
That's a lot, right? Yeah, totally, to maintain it too. But some of those roadways were actually resurfacing too, which is even better. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Don. I have one about housing and one about social services, but I think I'll direct the one about housing to Councillor Clark. We have one here. It says, we certainly appreciate that you do a lot for housing, and it's a big priority in the city. Can you take some time to discuss how we're going to house people in our community? Leave that for Henry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be delighted, especially when I also have my co-chair, Councillor Riel, here. The two of us share a passion for affordable housing in our community. You know, since I've been on council, we've created hundreds of new units, but still we have approximately 1,500 families on our waiting list. People who have said they need help with affordable housing. And affordable housing has a huge impact on our community. First of all, there is a significant dollar amount in the city budget because we do subsidize the social housing right down to 30%. But it also, in a sense, saves our community money too. When people have safe, decent, affordable housing, they don't go to the doctors as much. They're not an emergency. They don't end up in court as much. And all of those things have a positive impact on how our community is seen by others and how we can be free to enjoy it. Now, we do have a plan to address it. Keith and I are passionate about housing, and we've been working on big things and little things. But the one that's been in the news is the plan to restructure Peterborough Housing Authority and create a government business enterprise. That's a big word or a big phrase, but think of it like we run our utilities. It's out there, we own it, but we don't sit around the table and run it. The biggest issue is that over the next few years, there's several hundred of the units built back in the 60s and 70s. They're going to reach their life cycle. They're wearing out. But they were also built in a time when land use wasn't as intense, when we didn't have to worry about the cost of services because things were a lot cheaper. So a plan that was developed by the CEO of Peterborough Housing, and which we as council have endorsed, is to create a separate arm that can do the redevelopment. And because it's a government business enterprise, its debt does not become part of the city's. They can borrow at a very low rate. They can be entrepreneurial. They can build. They can find the right people to do it. And by making better use of the land, we are going to not only replace the worn out units, but we're going to add hundreds more. Between the worn out units and new, about 1,500. And that's over 600 new units. That's more than we've created in the last 20 years in the city. We're going to do that over the next, I'll say, 5 to 8 years, depending on how fast we can spool this up. There's large government grants out there that will help us. There's the ability to borrow at a very low rate. And all in all, we can make things better for the community. So that's the big thing that we're planning to do. We're always interested if people have ideas about housing. We get calls, both Keith and I, about pieces of property that are available, places that could be redeveloped, ideas, and we always welcome them. We always try to follow them through. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Henry. Move on to the next one is about social services. And I know that Keith knows more about social services than anybody I know, actually. So I'm going to forward this one on to him. Keith, our Councillor Rial, I've been asked here about, especially during COVID, how it's impacted our most vulnerable, and if you talk a little bit about how the city is reacting on social services and what's going on that side. So
thanks, Dean, and thanks for giving the opportunity. I want to thank Councillor Clark, my co-chair housing, on that bit of synopsis about housing, but this is a caring city and a caring council, city council. And it's the third council I've sat on, and there's always been the impetus for helping the underprivileged, the marginalized, and the homeless. I haven't seen anything that come to any councils I've sit on where council hasn't taken note and trying to help the less fortunate. But I think that for a city this size, a bit of kudos to this council. We're going to open a brand new shelter, the Brock Mission Men's Shelter, with 15 beds of transitional housing for the hardest to house male residents. And like I said, this is transitional housing. We get them into the shelter system. They go into these apartments, these one-bedroom apartments. It's transition. We get them settled down if they have an addiction problem, if they have a mental health issue, whether they have a medical issue, whether it's education, whatever. We get them in a safe place so that we can work with them, help them out, and then move them off into society to become productive citizens. Also, I think the city, we spent money on refurbishing Wolf Street into a shelter system. We are grateful to the churches and the other groups that have helped us out, but there was an absolute need. Every time that we came up, the cold weather came upon us, we were looking around, and the churches, like I said, we're grateful for the churches and the the welcoming that we got from the church system, but we were kind of wearing ourselves thin with them at the door, kind of always asking for them, and they will still give us help. But we've refurbished city building on Wolf Street into a shelter system. Under one roof, we're still supplying lunches every day. COVID-19 has really disadvantaged people from coming inside, but we have a mandate by the government where you can only allow so many in. So we're still serving lunch to people. So I think for a city this size, we are, I would put us up against anybody. As far as I know, we have not lost anybody on the street with adverse weather like other cities or cities way bigger than us that have lost people on the street in inclement weather. There are people still living rough out there. We know where they are. We talk to them. We can't force anybody to come into our shelter system, but there is a bed for them. And there's the amenities for them if they wish to avail themselves to that. But also, when we're bringing these people in, we triage them. And what I mean by triaging them, we find out what their needs are, and we try to get them housed. We've been successful every week about finding housing for people. So I think we've been successful. Is it perfect? Is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. We listen to the people that use the system. We listen to the people that are professionals in this here, and we keep massaging the system as we go. So I think that we've done a wonderful job. I will stand anywhere, shoulder to shoulder with anybody and say, I'm proud of the system that we have. Are we going to make changes to it? Absolutely. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But we're there to try and put that hand up, not a handout.
Thanks, Keith. I have one more email to read, and then we'll do a round of closing statements from everybody. And this is a pretty blunt one. I'm sure we've all had it. It's when are you going to pave my street? So maybe I'll put that to Mr. Freeman, but to discuss our capital project. And it's one we all hear a lot about, getting our roads paved. Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, Chair Pappas. And certainly it is a common theme that we hear in our community. And the question actually reminds me, Councillor Pappas, of a couple of reports that were put forward in March, and Council determined how we could use some monies that the additional $1 million actually that was raised through the 2021 capital budget process. And at that time, in just a month ago, Council made the determination to pave a number of streets actually in our community. In fact, there were streets actually slotted in for paving throughout all the wards in the city. And as well, I know that in the 2021 budget, actually the road pavement preservation project, I think, was our #1 project in terms of gross spend in the 2021 budget. And if I recall correctly, about $4.5 million of pavement preservation budget in the 2021 capital budget document. And then the final thing that comes to mind is there was also another report put forward, and I just quickly here, just thinking back as well, a month or so ago, when a report was brought forward about some additional capital financing and how to use those monies, and Council made the determination to help with, it was the Apple Grove road resurfacing project and some repairs there. And so, yeah, so Mr. Chairman, or yeah, Councillor Pappas, I know that it is a topic that we hear a lot about in our community, but Council is making inroads in terms of getting roads resurfaced. So I think it's going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And you made a pun. We're making inroads to fixing roads. So good like that. So we're coming to the end. I don't know if there's any other questions from our gallery here. Going once, going twice. Okay. I'm going to give Councillor Zippel a chance here to kind of chime in. Councillor Zippo, would you like to jump into our conversation here, or ask any questions of staff about the budget, or make any comments?
Thank you, Councillor Pappas. I actually just want to thank everybody for participating tonight, for having this opportunity. Our budget is a roadmap to the coming year, and it's a strategic plan for council. And the earlier people get involved and tell us what their priorities are and their vision for the coming year, the better we can plan and assess what's important to our community and what the vision for the community is moving forward. So I just want to thank yourself and Councillor Rial as chairs of finance and staff for being here and organizing and communicating with the public. This certainly is not the only opportunity, it's just the beginning, and staff have put up lots of different ways to get involved. And I want to comment on that interactive capital budget map. That was new to me. That's a fantastic tool, very cool. And I encourage people to click and look and see what's happening in their area, in their ward and neighborhood. And wish everyone a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Councillor Clark, would you like to make some closing comments as we wind things up?
Thank you, Chair Pappas. Appreciate the opportunity. We know that the budget will be extremely challenging this year. It is every year, but COVID has made it more difficult. And so we need to very carefully spend our dollars and allocate them into the places that are desperately needed, trying to reflect the priorities that we're hearing tonight and from the other consultations. So it's important that people tell us, where do they want their money going? We're certainly hearing roads, we're certainly hearing housing. We're definitely hearing concern for the poor and the environment, global warming. So those are the things that we'll want to reflect in our budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. I have Councillor Vassiliadis. Don, you want to impart some words of Greek wisdom on us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Chair Pappas. No, this is always a great opportunity, I think, for all councillors to listen to people. I want to thank everybody who spoke tonight. It's really important that we listen to the citizens of Peterborough, and we really get our ideas from our constituents. And I always say, generally, I don't wake up with this idea that we're going to do this today and for Peterborough. But again, you get the ideas. A lot of the motions you make, I find, when it comes to anything to improve the city, come from your constituents. So this is a great opportunity to listen. And this is actually our last budget for this term of council, and so it's a really important one, considering everything that's happened with COVID and everything else that's happening right now. But I'm happy to be here, and again, I thank everybody who participated tonight.
Thanks, Don. Keith, would you like to give some...
Thanks, Dean. I would like to thank the residents that phoned in and participated tonight and took part. This is where we get our ideas from, what the community is thinking, and certainly how we build a budget. So I hope we have another budget meeting planned. I'm hoping that more will avail themselves to tune in, take part, and we'd like to hear from them. Certainly, this is their night. I want to thank the other councillors that were here tonight, but also staff for doing a yeoman's job in presenting this here and making us really look good on our budget process. So I want to thank them. They do a wonderful job, and I just hope that more citizens will tune in on our next budget meeting.
Thanks, Keith. And again, to staff, I'd like to thank, I'm just going to go down the list here. We have Bill McDougall, Brendan Wedley, I've already thanked all the councillors, Richard Freeman, Sarah, Shannon, and Yvette. You guys do a great job. You do make us look good in these meetings, and we do appreciate all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. I know that people think we just passed our last budget right before Christmas, and people should know that Councillor Rial, myself, and staff have met Keith was about 8-10 times already.
Absolutely.
As we're working on the 2022 budget. So we're already working ahead, and Don said it. This is the last budget of this council, and as we go forward, there's some big things coming. There's the OP review will be happening, and that'll have an impact on the budget, and the transportation master plan will be in November of this year, and that'll have an impact on the 2022 budget. So there's it does go quick. Our fourth budget's upon us. So I do want to thank everybody who participated, all of staff. As again, this is your chance to get your voice heard early, and earlier the better. If you want to have some impact on the budget, the earlier us and staff can hear about it, the better it is, because we're already kind of working on it. And anybody out there can fill out the public budget survey. I think the link's on the website, and it's also in the chat here. So please fill out the survey as well. That's how we kind of break everything down with your ideas and track things. So again, I want to thank everybody and have a great evening. Cheers.